We are getting our first big test of how durable Donald Trump's election denialism still is. And it's happening on primary day in Arizona, which you will remember as a hotspot for 2020 elections investigations that ultimately went nowhere. Today, 3 Republicans on the ballot had either disputed or interfered with that election. There they are, leading GOP candidates for governor, attorney general, and secretary of state, which, as you know, is also Arizona's top elections job. So big deal. DNI Jay Clayton, or the DNI potentially to be Jay Clayton. He was just voted out of committee. Senator Warner said he had deep reservations about him after his performance the other day in front of that committee because he wouldn't answer the question regarding whether 2020 was duly won by President Biden. What do you make of Clayton moving forward?
Well, it's unsurprising given that the Republicans hold a majority in that committee. But I think if he answered honestly the question of who won the 2020 election, he would have had probably a unanimous vote because all of the Democrats on that committee wanted him to get into that position quickly so they could push Bill Pulte out. And so he just really fumbled quite badly. And if he's unwilling to answer a simple question like that in terms of who won a presidential election, and he seemed very frightened about, saying something that was going to annoy Donald Trump, what can we expect from him as a director of national intelligence? So I know that Senator Warner and others are really hopeful that he's going to live up to the reputation he had when he was in the SEC. But I must tell you, his first time out of the gate does not give me a lot of confidence that he's going to actually fulfill his obligations as director of national intelligence if he is confirmed by the full Senate.
Well, the vote was 9-8, so it looks like it was a party line vote with Republicans voting yes and Democrats voting no. We've got Andy Biggs, who wants to be governor. How's that look?
So, yes, you have Representative Andy Biggs, current member of the House, who was he's actually cited in some of the J6 documents, the documents around January 6th that the committee put forth about what he did or how he was interacting with the White House, as well as to try in Arizona to get what we are basically calling fake electors to vote for Mr. Trump. So he was very, very involved in that. You also have Alex Colodin. He is running in the Secretary of State's office, and he was one of the lawyers representing some of those fake electors, basically. And then you also have the Attorney General's race, which I think is a guy named Warren Peterson. He has been very vocal about pushing against the current Attorney General, the current governor, in cooperating with the investigations that the DOJ has put into when it comes to asking for election rules and from the state and things like that. So it's three people who are pretty I think we can call them election deniers, at least 2 out of 3 election deniers, but who are definitely on President Trump's side when it comes to investigating things like 2020.
When you address the nation, maybe it would have been on Iran, or maybe it would have been on the good news from the economy. But that election is, I understand he wants to remind people so that they don't do it the next time. But I think the whole MAGA emphasis on the actual election day cheating, and now we hear from Mark Wayne Mullen that there's 1 million votes that were cast, or registered voters that got ballots.
He says 250,000 non-citizens registered to vote in 4 Democrat-run states.
Yes, 4 states, million voters. That could have any of the swing states that would change the election. They were illegal and they know it. But the issue I think he should say is, I'm not going to adjudicate 2020 because by the time the ballots were cast, the system had been altered under the pretense of COVID. And now what do I mean by that? And then he could just do the items that Molly Ball in her Triumphalist article, she's a woman of the left, bragged that what they did. They changed the voting laws by going to lawsuits to district court judges and such, and in blue states to the legislatures. And what had traditionally been 30% of an absentee ballot was rebranded mail-in ballots, and that was 70% almost nationwide. And they brought in, under the guise of COVID, that you could register to vote without an ID, without a driver's license. They would give you an ID if you could use a credit card, you could use almost anything. But if you didn't have anything, they would give you one, a number, and then you could vote that same day. You could be ballot hard. That changed radically the entire American electoral system in one direction for the left. And so that's what I wish he would concentrate on. I don't know if it was illegal or legal, but the way that it did it altered the way we voted. And if you look at population increases, there's no way in the world that you would get so many voters voting in the 2000. More people voted in 2020 than in 2024. It was just astounding. It was just a sudden rise of voters. And we know now that, Mark Zuckerberg spent $417 million to appropriate the work of the registrars in key swing states. And by that, I mean basically give them all this money to put drop boxes that couldn't really be accounted for all over their states. Money to sue, to extend the balloting, mail-in ballots as in here in California, for 10 days, 7 to 10 days, depending on each particular state that the ballot could be cast. So it really ruined the system. It really did.
We know what that means, that means 1.5 trillion. Given the world that we live in and the disaster of what the Biden administration budgets gave us, not funding this department at 1.5 trillion, I believe, is the greatest threat that our nation faces. Either we invest in our warriors at this moment of step change on the battlefield and growing threats, or this is all just talk.
You repeatedly said that you trust the administration's handling of the war with Iran. We're now 5 months in, and the U.S. death toll has surpassed the withdrawal of Afghanistan. Given that, at what point are you willing to put an AUMF on the floor or vote for a War Powers Act resolution to try and rein this in?
The administration is working very hard. The Commander-in-Chief and the whole Department of War, they're working very hard to bring this to a resolution. There's a lot of discussions about how that will be done. We're all closely watching those developments, of course. I don't think an AUMF is in order right now. I think we need to bring this to a resolution. Look, I think it's important for all of our international partners, this is my personal view, to have a role in this. I mean, we've got all of our allied nations through NATO. We've got the Arab countries over there, the Gulf states that are in closest proximity to Iran. Iran is now fired on all of its neighbors, and they're turning everybody in the world into an enemy. And I think this is an important moment of history for all of the world community to decide how they want to handle this. It shouldn't just be America's obligation. My view is that everybody needs to play a role. So we'll see how that develops. I think we have to allow the space to do that. And I know that this administration is working around the clock to resolve that in a way so that we don't suffer any more troop losses. This is a great tragedy. It shouldn't happen. But it is a very important objective that I believe we've achieved to ensure that the largest sponsor of state of terrorism does not have a nuclear weapon. That would be a disaster for everybody, and everybody around the world understands that. Now we got to wrap it up.
Mr. Secretary, I'd like to ask you to help me reconcile some numbers. It's my understanding that this whole supplemental funding request is $87.6 billion, and most of the funding, $67 billion, is for the Department of Defense. Yet we are told the Department of Defense still has $75 billion in unobligated funding from last year's reconciliation package. Is that true?
Roughly correct numbers, yes.
So you've left some change on the dresser before you prepared to come for this hearing. What's going to happen to that $75 billion?
Well, that 75 there's plans and designs on that, part of the rebuild of our military, which had to be undertaken. And so the One Big Beautiful Bill gave us specific avenues. I'd have to get you the exact numbers of what that is left to be allocated.
Does it have to do with the war in Iran?
No, this is rebuilding our military from what was not funded in the past under the Biden administration. So this is from 2026, One Big Beautiful Bill, which helped move the president's priorities like Golden Dome for America, move away from all the woke priorities of what the Biden administration was pursuing, give us a chance to start cutting these deals on munitions, all the things that the president wanted us to focus on: shipbuilding, hypersonics. I mean, the Biden administration ignored hypersonics. They just decided to pretend like that technology didn't exist and we shouldn't invest in it. There are things. I don't know what Lloyd Austin did for 4 years. I really don't.
Well, I'm sure
the amount of neglect,
Sure he has
the amount
questions
of
about what
stale
you're doing
thinking
now.
and bureaucracy,
Hey, proceed if I
it
might
was
before-
staggering when we took
I hate
over.
to
So
interrupt
one
you.
big beautiful bill gave us a
Let me
chance
interrupt
to get
your
caught
speech
back
for a
up.
minute, Mr. Secretary. It's my turn to ask questions. I've been listening patiently while you made your presentation. You estimated at one point that the cost of the war in Iran was $29 billion, but then added a caveat that there was a replacement of munitions, for example. Do you have a new estimate about what the war has cost us so far in this, the 5th month of the first year of this war in Iran?
Senator, the estimate we have as of today is $37.5 billion.
And is the current activity, which we've been told about, the exchange of fire back and forth in Iran, an indication that that number is going to go up in the months ahead?
Some of that number captures additional O&M, mill pay, and other that would be anticipated through the fiscal year. So some of that anticipates what costs would be going out in the future as well.
So the new number you've given me is what?
$37.5 billion.
And that represents the cost of the war through what period of time?
Through now for certain aspects of it, but also mill pay, O&M, other anticipated costs through September 30th, Senator.
I think there was a sense that the president expressed at the start of the war that the U.S. military power was overwhelming and would likely produce unconditional surrender quickly by Iran. And that obviously hasn't happened. Was it your opinion as well? Did you feel like our military force could produce an unconditional surrender in quick order?
Sir, I won't, with due respect, I won't share my private advice to the president. What I will assure you and the American people is I always speak truth to power and offer an accurate assessment of what my assessment is of both our readiness, the plans and activities that might be undertaken, the associated risks, and the secondary and tertiary considerations that go with those opinions or options.
Thank you. So you feel like the various risks that the Iran could possibly close the strait, despite the destruction of their navy, that the possibility of assassinating their political leaders and their military leaders could produce a strengthened hardline and weaken the reformers, that Iran would have the ability to sustain its ability to attack sites throughout the Middle East, that the initial requirements of the war could surely deplete our basically high-end standoff munitions, that this could affect our relations with our allies. All those were factors well considered in this decision to go to war.
Sir, as I said, I won't opine on or share my private advice to the president.
I'm not asking about your vice president. I'm asking you, did you understand these issues, or have these become revelations as the wars unfolded?
Sir, my job is to understand all of the considerations that go into the carefully considered use of military power.
Let me ask you this then.
Yes, sir.
I understand why you don't want to respond, but these are all massive risks that seem to be poorly weighed in the beginning of this misadventure. Currently, there are reports that we have hit the Bonji desalination plant that provides water to about 20 villages or about 10,000 people, and we also damaged the desalination plant at Keshem Island. Were these deliberate targets by the United States?
So I'm not aware of those as being particular targets, nor am I aware of those reports, and I'll have to go back and get back to you on that.
If you could, I'd appreciate that. You are aware that infrastructure that civilians rely on to survive is not generally considered legitimate military targets?
Sir, as you know, we have a robust process which considers a target that goes through a system that looks at a variety of considerations to include what you're alluding to around both purely civilian or dual-use targets. Great. I have trust and confidence in CENTCOM that they're looking at the range of those things on a daily basis.
It sounds like you are assuring us that we will, the United States, not target, even in retaliatory sense, infrastructure that is generally considered to be primarily for civilian survival.
So, as I mentioned, we have a robust process, and we have the most professional military force.
It'd just be nice to have you say yes, because this is international law.
Yes,
if you understand the international law.
I do, sir. I've got a lot of lawyers that help me understand.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Tuesday, 21 July, year of our Lord 2026. We're going to break. We'll be back. We're through the looking glass. Victor Davis Hanson joins us as an election denier. Polly Pockets joins us in saying, hey, we got to wrap this thing up. Back in the war room in a moment.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
We're through the looking glass. Victor Davis Hanson goes full ultra MAGA, sounds like an original MAGA, original OG gangster on the 2020 election, lays it out very fundamentally, basically. And then for those of you who've been long-term viewers of the show, calls out the Molly Ball article, which hasn't been referenced in a long time. If we can put that up in Denver with that beautiful artwork for Time Magazine, the definitive piece on how the entire Democrat apparatus came together to secure the steal. Victor Davis Hanson, who's been so wrong on so many things dealing with geopolitics, maybe he's in getting onto the election, he can get back on a winning streak. So, because since this guy wrote a column for the Financial Times, I think back in 95 or 96, I got to pull it up, and I believe it was about, he was a professor at Fresno State and a farmer. And he talked, I think it was about the Peloponnesian War, Thucydides, the Peloponnesian War. And he wrote a piece about how he taught it in a classics course to young, principally Hispanic men, males, at Fresno State, and they couldn't get enough of it. He was fantastic. And I sent it out to the Time. I was working, that's the Hollywood years, financing the motion picture and music industry and TV. I said, this guy has nailed this thing. Then he became the Dick Cheney's, strategist. So, during the Iraq and Afghan debacle, and he's gotten this war in Iran completely and totally wrong. But when you go through the looking glass, he's calling Molly Ball. Look at that. I'll play it again tomorrow because we got to go through so much that happened today. And then Polly Pockets. Yo, neocons, when you lose Johnson, you better hit a 5-alarm fire. What's he say? We got to wrap this thing up. Sounds like he's in the word. Got to wrap this thing up. You damn right you got to wrap this thing up. There's going to be some polling out there that shows you people are just tired of it. And today we talked about really expanding a war to a Lebanon front and now to the Houthis. And the Houthis are going to have something to say about this as they lock down the Red Sea and the entrances to the Red Sea and Suez. And Speaker Johnson he laid it out. This is a global deal. And you've got nations of the world supposed to be our allies, starting with the guys in the Persian Gulf. Let's start with the Saudis, UAE, and Qatar. And people say, well, Steve, they are doing this. They ain't doing enough. Not nearly enough. And Pete, the 67 billion of the 87 billion, and the math is getting so complicated, I get a brain freeze. And I had some people in the administration call me today so I could work through the math. I was more confused about the math after I got off the phone. But what I know is 67 billion of this part of the reconciliation. I guess reconciliation 2.0, they're going to have one 3.0, who knows? This is 67 billion. We'll take the frozen assets. Let's take a little of that off the top of the Ayatollah. Let's take his frozen assets. Let's go take all their properties in Belgravia and in Knightsbridge and Chelsea. Those of you who've been to London, let's monetize all those. Let's get the Saudis to write a check. Let's get UAE to write a check. Let's get Qatar to write a check. Kuwait, Bahrain, all of them. Check writing time. And then see where we are. Anyway, we've got some good news here. Mary Jo Costello from Team Red. I need this today, Mary Jo. Tell me how in Allegheny County, you're a devotee of the Dan Schultz School of Precinct Strategy. Talk to me how Team Red has now turned Allegheny County, or back in the process of turning Allegheny County back to MAGA. Ma'am.
Amen. Thanks so much for having us on, Steve. I wish I could have my whole posse with me because it took a slew of us to make this happen. But back when at the first cyber symposium with Mike Lindell is when I met you, and you inspired me to get this team going and to find out what the why, like what is my task, what is my purpose. And then we ran into Dan Schultz to start figuring out the precinct strategy because most of us were pretty clueless. And it has taken us 4 years, and it has created the most beautiful movement. And I feel so proud to have founded Team Red back in, we've been doing this for, I can't believe I'm saying 6 years, but it has been remarkable. And on Saturday was our leadership election. They always have the establishment pick, they slide them in, they manipulate how they slide them in. And we had enough, and we figured it out. And we got moms to recruit their sons and their daughters, and we kind of doubled up our team. And we had 462 votes. They anticipated to stack the deck with 195, and they expected a 30% to 40% turnout. We had a 90% turnout of we the people that just showed up to vote in person. They never saw it coming, and we crushed it. So Brian Weissmantle is our new leader. He is a homicide detective, retired. He is 33 years in the military, and he is as steady as they come. Within 2 days, since Saturday night, he's already rocked the world, and we have what I'm going to call a phenomenal team moving forward. So we're all excited. We're celebrating the win of the precinct strategy. And without you, Dan Schultz, and all these people that have made such contributions to teaching us, we would have never been able to do it. But the most important thing is if we can do this in Allegheny County, everybody else can do it. And we're willing to help. You can reach out to us. It has been incredible. Our last chair left us completely flat broke. So now we're doing these big fundraising events, whatever we can do to start pulling it together. And we're going to show them how it's done. And we can't wait.
Okay, hang on. So what I'm going to do is talk to you guys after the show. I want to have the team. I understand we had some logistics problems today because we got the head of the IRS coming on. But I want to talk to you tonight. Let's get you back on, if it works tomorrow for people's schedule, in the morning show. And I want to get your whole team, and we'll figure out the cameras, because you are the lesson people have to embrace. And I think what's so absolutely amazing, I keep talking about the revolution, is that you've been doing this for 6 years. I take it there were some dark days in those 6 years when it looked like, hey, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And what are we wasting our time for? Let's go play tennis or something.
Yeah, we call it the TURDS, the Team Red Derangement Syndrome, because don't kid yourself, we are fighting our own party. And I'm talking to the choir here, but our own party has been so antagonistic against Team Red, and we're the war room. We're just little minions of Steve Bannon. And so we're here to save our country, and they just don't seem to get it. So we had to be we don't have any social media. We had to be sort of, I want to say stealth, but it's not like we hid anything. They knew we were coming for them, but it's how they tried to assume the election. And we weren't done. The results had barely been turned in, and our solicitor quit immediately after. Our chair, they're not happy at all. So the establishment handpicked candidates are not happy. But within 2 days, like I said, the joy that has already happened through Brian Weissmantle and his initial hello, everybody, is quite frankly remarkable. So we're celebrating out here, and we're going to make this thing better than it's ever been.
No, this is going to be this is a teaching moment, and we're going to use, because I hear this all the time from everybody. I just had some meetings after the morning show with people in another state that go through the exact same thing. And the question I ask them, why does the establishment, what is it about what you are offering? Is it policy? Is it a class difference? What is it? The hatred is almost visceral. They come out, they attack. What is the establishment's problem with people that are part of the grassroots base or part of the MAGA movement, ma'am?
I mean, I think it's a multifaceted question. Fear, they hate change. They don't want anyone to take their little fiefdoms. They're jealous, they're bitter. There's a whole multitude of reasons. In the last 2 days on Facebook, it's despicable what has transpired. And my team, I just say, stay off. They do not deserve the attention. We're trying to teach people, and we have taught a lot of people. People have come our way, despite them being angry, miserable, mad. They don't like change. They fear that they might be held accountable. Oh my gosh, God forbid. But we always teach them. And John F. Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, and Donald Trump have handed us our power back, and we don't know how to take it. So we're teaching people, we got to take our power. And that's exactly what we did on Saturday. And I believe we blindsided them. They might deny it, but I can't answer your question fully, Steve, because we still try to figure out why they are petrified and want to attack their own party when all we're doing is fighting for the Bible and the Constitution and our babies. This is pretty simple.
Okay, what is this? If you have social media or do you have a Facebook? Because we have the head of the IRS coming on, and I want to make sure.
Yeah, that's fine. No, we do not do social media.
You're original. This is original gangsters. These are OGs. Unbelievable. Give me your handle. Give me your coordinate. We don't do it, and we just won. So anyway, I'm gonna talk to you after the show. I want to figure out how to get the entire team on, like at maybe 11 o'clock. We take the whole hour because this is a teachable moment, and it's very important. So much. No. Listen, I got the easiest job in the world. You guys put in all the effort. Like I met with these people this afternoon. All they do is work on this. They're frustrated. They get beat down by the Republican rhino establishment and dismissed. And these people are not giving up fighting. So Mary Jo, I'll talk to you after the show, and we'll figure out tomorrow to get your entire team on there.
God bless. Thank you.
No, God bless you. Honored to have you on here. Dan Schultz. What's your social media? We don't do social media, but we just took over control of the Allegheny County Republican Party. God bless them. You see, in all the turbulence we've had today, that's a still point in the turning world. It shows you what dedicated Americans, right there with Mary Jo Costello and her team, that's 1774, 1775 American patriots. There's a direct, unbroken chain from her and her team all the way back to the revolutionary generation. Next, the chief executive officer of the IRS, the operator that runs it, is going to be here. They not just found some fraud, they found some systemic fraud. Scott Bessent, as you know, oversees it. The CEO is going to be with us, and we're going to break it all down. Next in the Word.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Hey, welcome back. Very honored to have Frank Bisignano joins us. Frank, we were supposed to have you on this morning, but we went live to the president's bilat with the president of Lebanon. So thank you for coming back and make yourself available. First off, walk through how many hats. You wear more hats in this administration than I think Marco Rubio. How many hats? You've got a couple of 3 jobs. What are they?
I'm the commissioner. I'm the confirmed commissioner of Social Security, reporting to the president. I am the CEO of the IRS, working closely with the Treasury Secretary, and I've been recently asked by the Secretary to expand the Trump accounts and take it to the next phase to grow it to 70 million American children.
Pretty big mandate. I want to thank you for your service to the administration, the country, and the president. I want to go to, and if we can put it up, there was a story on the New York Post this morning that was pretty explosive. You and the Treasury Secretary, I want to make sure I understand this. There's $100 million. Has it been going out to people that are dead and that you guys are finally cracking down on it? Can you walk us through this? Because it looked pretty explosive.
Yeah, well, that's one piece of it. Yes, Treasury is the place where all control occurs on payments going out. And as we've created in this administration a task force and been maniacal about eliminating fraud, waste, and abuse, we found many payments going out the wrong way. We've created the control functions both at Social Security, at IRS, and then at Treasury, making sure funds don't go to the wrong people. This is one example of the billions that have been partnered between Social Security, IRS, the vice president's oversight of fraud in general. That's allowed us to eliminate billions of dollars. But here's a perfect example at $100 million right here in front of us.
How can this? So the question gets to be, before you got there, and you and Scott are cracking down, just walk through the mechanics. How does this work for years that it has not been exposed and not been stopped? I mean, we're in a situation now. You're putting a reconciliation bill up. You've got the war in Iran. The first 9 months of the year. Treasury reports we have a $1.4 trillion deficit. I've said from the beginning of the fiscal year, I think it's going to be $2 trillion, so it's going to be 1.8 to 2. You have two tough mandates here. Well, first of all, the Social Security is a different issue, but you have a tough mandate is to make sure that you collect all the money that's owed to the IRS. President Trump's giving you guys a mandate. Hey, I want to close these deficits. Number one is to make sure that people that are actually owe the IRS legitimately pay their money. How are we getting a situation that before you guys arrive, it looks like we've been paying this out for a long time, correct?
Well, we've been paying out money erroneously for a long time. I mean, you could look at, we took the Social Security number database and we've reconciled it now. We found over a 10% error rate. That means people on file in the wrong manner, or people who are no longer alive. And that doesn't mean they were getting erroneous Social Security payments, but they had a live Social Security number that can be used for fraud, waste, and abuse. Think about over 300 million people, a 10% error rate. That's 30 million we corrected. And then you take that forward to what the great work we've done at Treasury, led by the Secretary, to ensure we're not paying people who should not get paid, and the ability to collect money better than we ever have. This is a set of disciplines. We are not administrators, we are operators. We figure out how to make the systems. This all gets done through technology. It is also because with the Vice President and President Trump's great mandate, it allows us to work across the government, interagency sharing agreements to allow us appropriately to share information to stop bad actors.
I want to go in Social Security and looking at this. You've got two different parts of Social Security. Basically, I think you've got one is for retirees. People have paid into the system, and then a certain period of time, they started getting those payments back. It started back in the Roosevelt, I think President Roosevelt's first or second term back in the 1930s. You then got a disabilities section, correct? How big are those two when you actually add them up? Is the retirement part 2/3 or 75%, and the disability are 25%, or how big is it as far as outflows every year?
It's really dominated by retirement. Although disability is a big portion of our workload and really very important. And all of this is about a technology-first agenda. And that technology-first agenda allows us to be able to come through and change how we serve the American public. I mean, the service the American public is receiving now is fundamentally 96% digital, with 4% of the transactions happening in the field offices. And that's a dynamic change from what was here before. We have cut wait times down in field offices from the last administration to now by 30%, and phone servicing wait times by 70%. All of that while cleaning up the infrastructure. We created a risk position that allows us to ensure we've collected billions of dollars that we wouldn't have before. So it's a completely different mandate. It's a completely different approach. And disability is now being also completely automated to get a better outcome. We cut down processing times to all-time lows in every one of these categories. That ultimately helps eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse across the board.
I want to go back to, because I know the Secretary had a problem with this at the time, and the OMB guys did also, and just to make sure that you guys, it's going to some process that you're still on top of. When Elon was at Doge, they had in president's, not the first State of the Union, but you had the, kind of this because of his inauguration just takes place a couple weeks before, and he gives his inaugural address. Instead of a State of the Union, you have your first, you go there and you give your, you talk about, it's basically a quasi State of the Union, but you talk about the nation. In that, I believe it was that, he spent about 2.5 or 3 minutes of the speech. It was pretty extraordinary, going through voluminous data provided by the first cut of the Doge guys of Social Security people that looked like it looked into trillions of dollars. Have you guys gone back and looked at that? And where do we stand in that process? Because it looked shaky at the time, and it really hasn't been mentioned since then. I know a lot of people have questions about it. On that original 3 minutes that the president went through and was talking about people 125 years old, 140 years old getting benefits. Have you guys had a chance to review that data, and where do we actually stand with that?
100%. I mean, what I was just talking about is the information was correct. There were records on the file, and that's why I talk about cleaning up over 10% of the 300 million records in a manner that's appropriate, a reconciliation that never occurred. The fact was they weren't necessarily or even collecting Social Security payments, but they had a live Social Security number that was being used for other purposes throughout the government or elsewhere. We've completely shut that down the first time since 35. That's when Social Security became in effect, that the Social Security number database, which used to be called Newman, a phrase that nobody would know what it meant, we named it the Social Security number database, has been reconciled. We created a risk position that oversees that. And all of that was identified has been eliminated.
So let me so what the Doge guys found, they may not have been getting Social Security payments, either disability or retirement, but they were those actual, and it was pretty extensive. All those were active Social Security numbers that were being used in other parts of the government by people.
I'm not saying everyone was used, but could have been. And we did find many, and we eliminated it. But we've corrected, as I said, if you think about it, we've corrected over 30 million records. If you think about that live number, the number one identifier of an American is their Social Security number. And we've treated it in this administration under the great leadership of President Trump as the most important thing is to reconcile a file that had never been reconciled in 90 years.
In reconciling, if those things were open, it had to be some sort of fraud. It's just not. If they were actively being used, as you guys went through it,
it was used for many purposes throughout it. Throughout the system, and we eliminated it.
Have you? But in eliminating it, did you also turn those people over to whatever your investigative arm is, or DOJ?
100%.
And do we have any update on because that's the heart of fraud. When you have people, either foreigners or Americans that are actually trying to game the system, that destroys it for everybody. And we need to hold those people accountable. So aspect, you've cleaned up the rolls to date, but are those people that were involved in that at all, even using it, are they being pursued?
Yeah, any case we brought to the system and is in process or still, we have cases completely being investigated right now as we speak.
You've had some pretty big jobs. When you took this, I saw you down in Mar-a-Lago at the very beginning of it. I think you had gone for your confirmation. Did you have any idea how screwed up these systems were? Coming from a very sophisticated money center bank, global bank, did you have any idea of how screwed up these systems were when you took the job?
Well, no, and I think that what I also came to understand is there's tons of people within the federal government that want it to work right. And I've been fortunate to have a good mix of political appointees with commercial experience and people within the system who want to do a really great job, both at IRS and at SSA. We delivered a great tax season, the best tax season ever, with the most change with 25% less people. So it's rewarding to serve the country, specifically under this great president, and partner with cabinet members. I don't think there's ever been a team like this on the field helping run the country.
I want to say, and I'd like the way, Frank, you said operators, and I know you're one of the most sophisticated and effective CEOs in the country, and really this is what people voted for these type people like you to come in and work for President Trump and with President Trump and for the American people and sort things out. So we want to just thank you for taking this job on. And I know you got great people around you, man, but it is a bear, particularly when you get technology involved. Where do people go to keep up with all this? What's the easiest way to find out what you're working on every day? The website, social media, what do you got?
I mean, we put out every day at SSA information. I think come watch us on X, look at what's going on at SSA, look at what's going on at IRS. Every day is innovation happening, and, I'll make sure that we're always talking.
Frank, thank you so much. When we supported Scott Bessent in his confirmation and even the selection and kind of the fight we had before that to support Scott, he promised to bring the best and the brightest over there to Treasury and the other affiliate entities like Social Security and IRS. And in your case, he did it, sir. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing this on the War Room. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Frank was going to be on this morning, but because we went to the Oval for the BiLab, it's really great. He was able to come back. Big deal. They're getting to the bottom of the corruption. Just got to make sure we're prosecuting all those people. Pretty scary. Short commercial break. Back in the War Room in just a moment.
We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Positive things this afternoon, since it's been a day of kind of, let's say, not on message. Glenn's story is Glenn. We got Glenn now. We had Mary Jo Costello. We're going to have the team from Allegheny back on tomorrow morning, and very enlightening from the CEO of the IRS. I keep saying this is why Tax Network USA, these guys have a mandate. He just said it right there from President Trump. They've got to get every available piece of cash that they believe they're owed, right? They believe they're owed. So you've got to deal with that. President Trump, this is aspirational about President Trump wanting to do away with income taxes. He definitely wants to do away with income taxes, but it's aspirational. Pete Hegseth is up there today talking about a $1.3 trillion defense budget. Well, guess what? Polly Pockets comes up. He's had a change of heart. Now he's preaching the gospel of the war room. The allies in NATO got to send their navies. The Arabs got to start writing checks. The Israelis got to start writing checks to us, not the other way. We can't afford to pay for this. And take all the Persians' money. Just take it all of it. Suck on that. This money's going to pay for the war that we had to do because you kept trying to build a nuclear weapon. Tax Network USA, 866-513-5516. Go check it out. You just heard from the head of it. They got a mandate. We got massive deficits on top of almost $40 trillion in debt. Scott Bessent's got to refinance that. Somehow, the bid in the ass between what you believe you're owed and what the IRS says you owed, let Tax Network get. It's a total free call, so go check it out today. A free discovery call, 866-513-5516. Check it out today. Glenn Story, another upbeat guy. Talk to me about, before we talk about the company, the Grassroots down in Texas. Where are we? We got to hold Texas, particularly against this Islamic invasion, but also in this Senate race. I think the Democrat is starting to be exposed as kind of radical, sir.
You think? Look, he's as radical and as nuts as... I just don't know that there's much going on in between his ears, to be blunt. I mean, look, he says, I don't like meat one day. We're a meatless campaign. The next day you see him chomping on a turkey leg. It's like he'll say anything to get elected.
If people notice that it's, he's, like you said, he has this history of saying, I'm a vegan. Longhorns are adding to climate change, that people that eat steaks, eat beef, are destroying the planet. And then when he's outed with this old video, next thing he looks like some savage, looks like a Viking chewing on a turkey leg at a Golden Corral, right, with a big plate of beef and potatoes.
Yeah.
Are people in Texas starting to understand this guy's a total phony?
Yeah, a Viking really looked like a man back then, the big beard and everything. He might look like a young Viking, and anyway, I'm not going to talk about somebody's looks. I'm going to talk about his politics. I think they're as bad as they possibly could be, and I think he is being outed. They were saying he's Beto 0.3, no chance. He's Beto times 0.1, if that. And they've picked the wrong candidate yet again. And people are seeing it. You're starting to see biblical scriptures. God is not binary. Okay, well, here's the scriptures. There's so many things that he's talked about, and people see it. And it's, we're just trying to activate folks and say, look, I know that 80% of Texans are aligned, whether you're left or right. We all believe in the same thing, right? We love our freedom. We love our God. We love our family. Don't mess with that. And I think what they're doing is messing with it.
We had Danielle on today, talked about all your alliances. Why should people make the switch today to Patriot Mobile?
It's pretty simple. We're America's only Christian conservative cell phone service provider. And you know what? We're 100% U.S.-based customer service. And most importantly, we serve God, and we try to put him first. And it's really what we're doing today, in our grassroots efforts. I know you didn't ask. You asked it a little bit earlier. Look, we're trying to activate the church. We're trying to it's a biblical responsibility to get out to vote. So we're reaching out to everybody that we touch, all the different organizations, and said, hey, activate your folks here in Texas, activate everybody, because at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to get out and vote. And look, the War Room Posse, have everybody in the War Room Posse talk to their pastors and say, pastors, be bold, be like our Black Robe Regiment. Get fired up and speak the truth. Quit trying to just put butts in the seats. Let's be real.
972 Patriots, where they go. Glenn, you and Jenny have done such yeoman work in Texas. It's unbelievable. I've seen it up close and personal, and you two guys are inspirations. So I want to thank you for coming on tonight. Daniela did an amazing job today. 972 Patriot. You call right now, you get somebody with the East Texas accent that will tell you how great the company is, what is the best mobile service in the world. Plus, Glenn, if they want to have a prayer session, they're open for it, right?
Yeah, amen. We had some folks come in the other day. I won't go into too much detail. They were with one of the major networks, and it happened to be on a Wednesday, and it's prayer day. We do it from noon to whenever. And I said, look, do you mind if you want to jump into some prayer? And we had praise and worship, and it was amazing. They were blown away. They were like, you wouldn't see this in our corporate office. And I said, well, no, we don't expect to, but this is a regular occurrence here. We love our God. We love our country and family.
You guys are very special. Glenn Story, thank you so much. Jenny Story, two of the most special people I know. Thank you, sir. And what a great company. 972 Patriot. Call right now. Find out why you should make this switch and make it today. Mike Lindell, that's pretty inspiring having Glenn Story come before you, because I know how deeply held your religious beliefs are since you were fallen and then came to God and then came to Christ and changed your life, sir.
Absolutely. And no, that's a big thing. That's what's kept my pillow going, is my faith in God, with all the attacks and the faith my employees have had, and having no fear as we go out and fight for the country too, and only having the fear of God. And but you know what? You guys have made it possible. I do want to get their special out today that we've added. We're going to be at the factory floor tomorrow. But in the meantime, we are doing our new factory sale. This is a War Room exclusive. And one of the things on there that you all asked for is the free shipping. My employees, we decided, you know what? Let's give the War Room Posse free shipping on their entire order. That's an exclusive. Wow. Go to mypillow.com/War Room. Get all there's like 3 sales colliding, happens once every 250 years. Free shipping, promo code War Room, 800-873-1062. Promo code War Room.
Okay, we're going to see you on the factory floor tomorrow with My Pillow, one of the greats, one of the all-time greats, Mike Lindell. Glenn Story and Mike Lindell back to back. Stick around for the 6 o'clock hour.